Welcome back to this series on ASP.NET Dynamic Data. This is the fourth video in the series, and in this video we're going to look at how to enable inline editing in our dynamic data application. You'll recall in the last video we took a superficial look at the routing mechanism that's included with ASP.NET Dynamic Data, and we looked at how we can change the URL sequence to conform more closely to the semantic workflow of our application. And so that was a pretty simple, superficial thing that you can do with routing, but you want to understand that routing is central to how we customize our dynamic data applications. And routing is a very powerful feature, and in some respects, routing is what really controls our workflow in our application. So the relationship between the data that we're looking at, the action that we're performing against that data, and the actual ASPX files that will be used to handle that functionality. So this is the Northwinds application that we've been building with ASP.NET Dynamic Data, and you'll recall that in the global.asax file we were using the default route, and we were working with the options that we could set on that route. Specifically, we were manipulating these templates: action and table. Right? And the reason that we were manipulating these is that by default there are ASPX pages that handle particular actions for all of the tables in our application. Now what we're going to see starting with the next video is that we can get very granular in terms of we can define routes for specific actions on specific tables. So we can say, hey, by default I want all of the tables to be listed with the list.aspx page, but I want the products table to use this other file. And so we'll see how we can drill down into the specifics of that as we move forward. Now, in our case, the other thing to remember here is that in addition to this route for action and table, we have this actions collection. Right? And so what we're saying here is that we're going to use this one route for these four actions: list, details, edit, and insert. So let's run our application just as it stands. Now remember this action table sequence. Let's go ahead and run this really quickly. Drill down into the list for our products table, and then let's look at the URL and remember the sequence: action, table. In our case, list is the action, products is the table. If we go down and we select edit, we're editing a record in the products table. Right? Notice we've navigated to another page, a completely separate page. But if we go up and look at the URL, we have action, which is edit, table, which is products, and then of course whatever arguments the ASPX file needs to get to the specific record. Right? And we've navigated here to a separate page, and when we're done, our submit action takes us back to the page that's been specified as listing listing the data for our table. If we click on insert, by the way, we again go to another table, or I should say another form, where we can enter a new item, and then when we're done and we submit, we go back to the list view. Now, if we look at our dynamic data project and we go down into our page templates, notice that we have list, edit, insert, and details. So these are basically ASPX pages for each of the four actions that are defined, and the routing mechanism uses the dynamic template for action table name to map the action that we're executing into one of these files. But you'll notice that this fifth file, listdetails.aspx, and that's the one that we're going to use to enable inline editing. So let's go ahead and go down into the routing mechanism, and let's comment out the default routing mechanism that we've been using, and let's go down to this first one that's been auto-generated for us and uncomment it. Now, one of the things I want to point out here is, again, sometimes folks have a tendency to look at some of these demos and look at one or two demos and say, okay, routing, I get it. Routing is a really powerful mechanism, and it's central to how we customize what our dynamic data application does. So in this case, we've got a couple routes that are provided for us simply by virtue of the fact that we've created this project using the ASP.NET Dynamic Data project template. But we can add as many routes as we want specific to individual tables and individual actions. So we're going to look at how to do that starting with the next video. But the point here I want to make is that we can add as many routes as we want, and the routes are evaluated in a top-down fashion as they appear in the global.aspx page. So for example, this route says for all tables, and this is all tables because it's in these brackets, so that means we're using the table template, use the listdetails.aspx page, and then we specify the action. So we've specified action equal page action dot list. So what this says is if the action is list, use the listdetails.aspx page. But what if somebody selects a specific record? Right? Let's also uncomment the second route in this list and evaluate it. All right? So notice in this case, we're adding a second route. The URL format is the same, table and then list details. So we're saying list details is going to handle this action as well, but we're specifying that the action is details. Right? So right here. Now, what this means is that we've said for the details action and for the list action, we want both of those actions to be handled by listdetails.aspx. Now, if we wanted to, of course, we could specify different files so that the list action would get handled by one file and the details action would get handled by a different ASPX file. But in our case, we're going to use list details for both. You'll also note that insert and edit actions are not explicitly defined here. They were explicitly defined here in the one that we commented out, but we don't have an action definition for edit and insert explicitly defined anywhere in our route collection, and that's okay because the listdetails.aspx page is going to handle edit and insert in that page, so we don't have to explicitly define a separate action because the listdetails.aspx page is going to handle those actions for us. So with that, let's go ahead and save our global.aspx file and go ahead and run the application. And of course, the default.aspx page will come up, and that hasn't changed. So we're going to see the list of tables that are available to us. And then when we drill down into the tables, so we'll get our list. And we'll select products. And notice our list is going to look the same. But if we choose one, let's select edit. Notice that what happens is that we don't navigate to a separate form. We're here still in our grid, but in our for this particular field that we clicked edit on, we now have editable text boxes instead of just static lists. Now, one of the things, remember, let's go back to the list view. Right. So here we are in the list of products, and note here that the format is table name listdetails.aspx. Let's go ahead and click edit again. Go into edit mode. Right. So now we're in edit mode. But if we go look at our URL, it hasn't changed. It's still table and listdetails.aspx. I can make a change here. Let's change that from 6-ounce jars to 6-ounce cans. Go ahead and click update. And notice we get the dynamic update. Now, a thing to note here, though, is that we didn't get a page post back. We didn't navigate from one page to the next. We're still here on list details. There wasn't. We didn't have to re-render the entire page because, as we'll see when we look at the listdetails.aspx page, this is fully enabled by ASP.NET Ajax. So this is all in an update panel, and we get that very nice Web 2.0 Ajax-y feel to the application. Now, one of the things to note here is that for each record, there's details that are displayed below, and we're going to go see that this is just a page template. So if you want to change how this looks, you want to actually get rid of it, you can do that as well. And remember that because you can specify different actions, I could say I want the edit action to be handled inline, but I want the insert action to be handled by a separate form. So you can get pretty clever in terms of making your application look and work exactly the way that it should. So in this case, if we say select, notice we'll clicking the select button just makes that the current record in the grid, so the details are shown here below the grid listing. And if we select new, notice we don't navigate to another page. There's no full page refresh. We're just here where we can add a new record. Let's add one really quickly. Well, let's add an energy drink, and we'll make them 24 to a unit. Unit price is $66. Units in stock, let's make 20 in stock, and units on order, let's make 40. Reorder level is 12. The supplier is exotic liquids, and the category will be beverages. Now if I go ahead and click insert, now you'll note again Ajax page refresh is very slick. If we go and filter the supplier to be exotic liquids, notice the energy drink that we just added is right there in line and available for editing. So really, it's that easy to get started by implementing inline editing, but we want to make sure that we understand that this list details view, this is just a generated file, and by default it's pretty simple. So if we look here, notice that this is an Ajax page, so we've got a script manager proxy, and the script manager lives in the master page, of course. We have an update panel. And then we've got some header information. Here's our grid view. Now we're allowing our grid view to auto-generate its columns based on the database schema, but as well as select, edit, and delete buttons. But you want to understand, and we'll demonstrate this in a future video, that you can manually select and data bind the columns that you want to. So just the default mechanism is to let the grid handle all of the columns in the database table, but you don't have to do that. This is just a standard ASP grid view, so you can use all of the modifications that you would use in any other grid view, you can use with a dynamic data grid view. Right. Notice all CSS driven, so you want to change the look and feel. You just modify the CSS file that you start with, or add additional ones to provide the specific look and feel flexibility that you need. Right. Link data source is specified here. Here is our details panel that you saw at the bottom of the page when we selected an item and made it current, or when we used insert. And of course the link data source. Again, all in an update panel. So this is just a standard, a standard page using a grid view, just like you might write from scratch. Right? So this is going to be a high level of customability that's available in this listdetails.spx page. And one of the things to remember just before I close is that although we're using list details to handle all of the tables in our application at this point, what you're going to see in the next video is that you can create your own custom versions of any of these files, list, insert, edit, or list details.aspx, and route to your customized version for all the tables, or for a subset of tables, or even for just one specific table. And we'll see that in the next video.